Hello, beautiful people. How are you today on this day of April 9th, 2013? Today, I'd like to get more personal than I have, probably more personal than I've ever gotten on any of my videos. And I'm specifically really doing this for two reasons. Number one is to have someone know me better than they do, and she knows who she is. Number two, to actually record this and just get it out, because I've learned one thing. When you put stuff out, when you record things and they actually touch a chord with somebody and somebody can relate to them, they copy it, maybe somebody will download it, burn it, whatever, and it'll be saved. It'll be there in about 10, 20, 30, 40 years when YouTube isn't. That's where I'm going to upload this. So this is, in a sense, my time capsule. But I really don't care if anybody really listens. It's cool if they do. Maybe they'll learn something. But ultimately, this is about my life growing up. I'm going to entitle this something like Growing Up with the Nazis. Because I really haven't heard anyone in Texas or on the internet actually speak and come forward and talk about their experiences of growing up in Texas in a time after they brought these Nazi motherfuckers to Texas and we had to grow up around them. They became our politicians. They became the KKK and all the racist people and racist teachers that Afro-Americans have to deal with, and some racist things that are done that you cannot even fathom, that Afro-American people just don't speak about. That's why I'm going to make this video. Now, first, I want you to understand that I grew up in Navasota, Texas. Navasota, Texas is about 20 minutes from Huntsville. Huntsville, there's a big prison. In the state of Texas alone, they have more Afro-American men locked up than all the United States combined. Okay? Now, do you think this is a coincidence with the Nazis being relocated to Texas? Bush having a ranch right outside Vidor, Texas. Vidor, Texas is a KKK town. Did you ever hear about Jasper, Texas? Jasper, Texas is where they basically took it about a 40-year-old man, chained his neck, chained his hands behind his body, chained his legs to the tree, and tied a chain around his waist, and tied the other end of the chain around his waist to a car, and they ripped him apart. This happened in Jasper, Texas. Bush's comments about this when Bush Jr. was the governor of Texas was absurd. He's a fucking Nazi. They don't care about us. We are basically here to be their slaves and cattle, and for the ones that refuse to work in the system and work for them and deal with their racist attitudes in the workplace and just about every place you go here in Texas, they don't really like us. So I'm making this video to speak out specifically about this. Now, I want you to understand that Navasota, Brownsville got some really serious lineage. Method Man's family comes from there. Flavor Flav's family comes from there. Even Russell Simmons lived in Texas at one time and point before we all knew who he was before he moved to New York. Because he got the fuck out of here. I mean, Texas has some deep Afrocentric roots and that are really rooted in some of the greatest Afro-American musicians to date. This is one of the things that I've really heard nobody ever say. Jamie Foxx from Texas. A lot of talents from Texas. One of the things that people don't know about Quentin Tarantino, I know he's not Afro-American, but he just made a really good movie. The Django Unchained, I liked it. Spike Lee didn't have shit to say about it. But, I mean, honestly, I don't really like Spike Lee with his black exploitation movies, because some of them actually are. That's how I feel. I mean, that Nikki Girl 6. I did enjoy Malcolm X. You know, but some of his movies are really just really black exploitation. And I really didn't get into him. Melvin Van Peebles, I like his movies. He was the first man to do Afro-American Hollywood. He was the first, okay? So anyway, Quentin Tarantino, let me let you know, I grew up next to Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino worked at the Blockbuster where he used to collect all his videos and have a massive video collection. My sister worked with Quentin Tarantino. Everybody called him Creepy Quentin. He lived in Spring Branch. So if anybody happens to talk to Quentin Tarantino and ask him where he grew up, I know where he grew up. I remember him. His nickname was Creepy Quentin because he collected such outrageous movies and horror movies. So I'm going to give respect to him for Django, because I love Django because it actually showed a slave actually taking his power back. I like that. And also featured Jamie Foxx, who's also from Texas. So, anyways, let me get into my story of growing up. As a kid, I lived in Dickinson. When we moved from Navasota into Dickinson, Texas, my father was a Jehovah's Witness preacher. He used to take us door to door in Navasota, Texas, where we used to get guns pulled on us and rifles pulled on us and racial slurs. And then when they, just for being Afro-American, coming on these racist Hicks land as a family, and then they would find out that we're witnesses, and then they get even more pissed, even more racial. This is how I grew up in Texas. So then we moved to Dickinson, and my next door neighbor, and you're not going to believe this, but I want you to believe it, his name was Treadway. He's part of the KKK, very racist. Now, I was a young kid, and I'm not sure if it was the Mr. Treadway that lived next door to me in Spring Branch, who we're going to talk about. Because the Treadways, they're sort of a large family of men. And I do remember Mr. Treadway, when I was a kid, he did have a son, and we were very young. So basically, I was living next door to a guy that was in the KKK. He was very open to telling us that, you know, he was very racist. He didn't like us. He didn't like his son playing with my son. He told my dad this very frequently. Whenever he would be away and our parents would be at work, me and his son would go outside and play. We're kids. Kids don't know color. So one day his dad comes home and finds out that he had been playing with me comes over to my house, rings the door, and tells my younger sister, he says, look, I remember this, I was a really young kid. I didn't know what a nigger was. So he's telling my younger sister she couldn't be any more than like 14, 15. I don't want your nigger ass coming over to my house playing with my kid. If I see your nigger ass again at my house, I'm going to call my friends and y'all are really going to be in trouble. And then he started bitching, and then my sister bitched at me for playing with this kid and blah, 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 blah. I'm a kid. I asked my dad what a nigger was. And he was shocked. He was shocked that I even knew this word. So then my sister told him what happened, and my dad goes over to this man's house next door. They have words. We hear all this yelling, all these racial slurs, and this and this and this. And guess what happened? My dad started getting followed, harassed. All I remember is we moved from that house. This was in Dickinson, Texas. Now, let me let you know about Dickinson, Texas. Dickinson, Texas is about 10 minutes from NASA. Okay? Dickinson, Texas is over near Friendswood, near NASA Road 1. I mean, all the Nazis lived in Friendswood and around that area because they worked at NASA. So it was no surprise that we had a Nazi living next to us, because my dad, he was a very hard-working businessman, head of a 14-kid family, graduated his college, Validum Kalade, whatever, the top of his class in college. So we were living in a nice neighborhood. So anyway, I'm going to bring your attention to Spring Branch, where another treadway pops into my life. Whether it be a coincidence or not, this is what I really do think. I think that my father here in Texas was actually told by his other rich business friends to look into moving there and guided to move there by these fucking Nazis in secret. Because I don't believe in coincidences, and they are very strategic. Because I want you to know something about my father. One of the things that happened to my father when he was young, he was the head of 14, okay? His youngest little baby brother. Because my father set an example to work hard to get what you want. So his younger brother worked for 2 summers, saved every dime to get a motorcycle. The first day he bought that motorcycle, he stopped at a 7-Eleven, got one of those drinks, you know, those fountain drinks, was sitting outside on his motorbike. 4 racist boys drive up, 2 in the back of the truck, 2 in the front. And they can't believe they're seeing this Afro-American sitting on a brand new motorcycle. And then they say, hey nigga, get off that bike, you know it ain't yours. And they start slurring him and saying all this stuff, and finishes his drink, throws it away. And he's like, it is my bike, takes out the key, starts the bike, gets on it, and drives off. They follow him. They're screaming racial slurs at him. They run him into a ditch. He breaks his neck. Guess who this younger son was? Bush Sr. Yeah, let me say it again. Bush Sr. When he was a young man, he killed my father's younger brother. So I'm letting you know, like, why I've had these Nazis, why I've had the government, why I've had these T.I.s, Gangstalkers, stalking my family before I was born. This is the real Texas. This is my family history. This is what it's like growing up with the Nazis. Guess what happened? Nothing happened to those boys. Not a goddamn thing for killing my father's younger brother. This destroyed him. This destroyed my family. I never knew him. I just knew the story because my father always told it to me, because we would go to South Padre Island and rent, three-wheelers and four-wheelers and go on the beach. And he'd always tell me this story to make sure I was very careful. And he said, I will never let you get on a two-wheeler. I'll never let you buy a two-wheeler. I'll never let you get on a motorcycle. So this is why I suspect these Nazis had a hand in where my father went, where he worked, what he did to make sure he didn't really tell anybody this story. Because the man that was actually involved and his cousins that were actually involved in the killing of my father's stepbrother were growing to be some of the most powerful, diabolical, most evil men in the world. So my father moved us to Spring Branch, and this was actually the second time we lived in Spring Branch, because we moved to Spring Branch from Dickinson, and then we moved out to Humble, Texas. Now, if you don't know about Humble, Texas is a very rich, exclusive neighborhood. My father designed the house that we lived in. We were the only people that had a half-circle driveway. All our neighbors were super racist because they were super rich. We were the first black family, Afro-American family, to live in this neighborhood. The school that we went to, the teachers were so outright racist, it was unbelievable. Students could call me the word nigga under their breath, and the teacher heard it. And then if I said something, or if I got upset, the teacher would punish me. I tried to tell my parents, and they would just say, oh, you're overreacting. And this is how I grew up in elementary school. It's unbelievable. I lived down the street from Lucas. He had a son named Chris. This was a little bit before he did Star Wars, so all you Star Wars buffs know Lucas is actually from Texas too. He lived in Atascocita, Humble. If I'm full of shit, how would I know these things other than I lived them, okay? So again, Lucas was actually racist. Go figure. I mean, there's only one black guy in Star Wars, Billy D. Williams. No, Lucas loves the Afro-American people. So, anyways, after we moved from that racist neighborhood, because the neighbors and everybody, it was just too much. Actually, Woody Harrelson lived in this neighborhood as a kid too. He lived up the street in Atascocita, Texas. This is when he was young. I was just a little kid. I remember growing up and all of these people being around me, because I want you to really understand how much of Hollywood comes from Texas. How much of Hollywood, the people that run Hollywood, come from Texas. And I want you to understand why. because the Nazis from Operation Paperclip were relocated to Texas. Why? The space program. NASA. Because the Nazis perfected rockets, the V-2 rocket. The Nazis perfected the Nazi Bell, which was basically a fucking UFO. Our government wanted this technology, and they brought these evil-ass scientists to Texas to work in their underground bases, which they started to build after they brought over the Nazis, just like the Nazis did during their occupation of Germany. He continued to do the same thing here. So this is how I grew up. I have no need to lie about it. Because the truth, you can't dispute it. So after we moved from Atascocita, we moved to the Valley because my parents got a divorce. Because my father was working in the corporate world, and he was working around the most racist motherfuckers in the world. I mean, he was going to Reagan dinners when Reagan was president. My mom was his accountant, bill keeper. And so after they got a divorce, it just got bad. We moved to the Valley. My father designed another house in the Valley that we lived in. And that's the house that my parents got a divorce in. So I went from living a really lavish, pretty nice life, not materialistic. We just lived in big houses. We didn't have much because, like I said, my father was an actual witness, Jehovah's Witness. So they didn't believe in overindulging. But he did believe in living nice. So he designed this house that we lived in. It was really nice. So my parents got a divorce, and my mom gave us an option. We can go live with my father or stay with her. Well, we stayed with my mom for one specific reason. My father abused us. My father abused my mom, abused my sister. He was very abusive. This is the byproduct of working in corporate America, working around these fucking Nazis, because they'd be so racist and fuck with his head so bad when he'd get home. He would just flip out and he'd beat me, beat my sister, beat my mom. So my mom just got tired of it. So when you study the psychology of the Afro-American man in the United States, and especially in Texas, you really start to learn an oppressed man that is working with oppressors, that has been oppressed all his life, takes this oppression out on the people closest to him. So this is actually what my father did, and now I really understand the whole chain of events. And me, myself, I've never been abusive to a woman. I never will be. I'm very respectful to women. This is why I'm sitting here alone right now, because even in this day and age, women truly don't like men that respect them because they're not used to it, and they say we're too nice. They say we're weak. They're used to being manhandled and very bad things done to them. This is what they consider normal. This is what they consider love. It's really sad and twisted. So I went from living a very nice life to living a very poor life. My mother working several jobs to support 4 kids. And let me tell you what my father did. My father, to make up for what he did, he buys a condo, and what he did is he paid for half of it. He told my mom he paid for all of it, which he didn't. Only paid for half of it. So we are a family living in Houston in a one-bedroom apartment, one woman, four kids. My father buys us a condo in Atascocita. Don't know why. My mother didn't really question it after she gave him the keys, and it was a four-bedroom, two-story. It was a blessing. We moved in without my father. This is the biggest mistake of my family's life. We moved into a racist neighborhood where there were only like 2 to 3 Afro-American families in that neighborhood, in that area. And me and my sister, along with one other kid, there were 3 Afro-American kids in Spring Forest at this time. So you can imagine how they treated me and my family. Yeah, there were Mexicans, but the Mexicans were treated better than us. So in the area where we lived, it was right off Memorial, 781 Country Place. It's in a complex, a duplex. Right across the street in Memorial were the biggest homes, some of them, the biggest homes in Memorial. The Richies, who were related to the Bushes, lived there. A lot of KKK rich motherfuckers lived in that neighborhood across the street from where I lived. I grew up fighting these racist motherfuckers because one of the things that I did develop is I developed a love for martial arts. I developed a love for fighting. And it's the only thing I was really good at. And so the second day I get to school, they're just straight up racist, okay? So the third week, I'm at school. I'm sitting with my friend Shannon because he had come shortly after I did to that school. So there was like 4 Afro-American kids in this school. We're sitting out in front of Kroger. I'm wearing a white and pink striped shirt. This kid Gary Hannon says "Pink's for pussies," starts calling me all these racist names. We start fighting. Can't touch me. I kicked his ass. Literally. Really fucked up his face from taking his head and running it across a brick wall. So the next day we get to school. I get all these bullshit cheerleaders coming up to me because I didn't know who he was. Gary Hannon was the captain of the 8th grade football team. I was in 6th grade. So it was unfathomable to these, racist dumb fucks that a Afro-American small kid, could kick the football team captain's ass of the 8th grade varsity team. But I did. And I just said to these cheerleaders, I said, look at my face and look at his. Look at me and look at him. And that was it. And so after that, I developed friends that we stuck together because we always got picked on, or they always got picked on by these racist motherfuckers. And so basically we grew into what we call the little mafia in Spring Forest. It was me, Alex, Brian Smith, who was Italian, Omar Khan, who the Khan family, they're very rich and very notorious in Texas. Omar knew martial arts. He could jump at least like 9 feet in the air and do a roundhouse. No one ever fucked with him. No one ever fucked with me. No one ever fucked with Alex because Alex's father, I'll just say, did some things for the Mexican mafia, like own restaurants where they ate at, shit like that. Brian was Italian. He was the real Italian bad boy. So within us, we were really like the little untouchables of the school. So during this time growing up, A little white kid came to school after I'd been at Spring Forest for a year. Chris Treadway had a big mouth, blonde hair, blue eyes. All the girls thought he was cute, so all the jocks were jealous, and he was notorious for talking shit. Now, one day he talked shit to the wrong person. Now, there was like cliques in the school, like the bikers, the preps, bullshit motherfuckers. We were like, me and my friends were like the artist mafia. We dressed nice and we were into artistic stuff, and it's us. We liked good music too, because I was a DJ back then still. So Chris comes to school, talks shit to Danny. Danny is the bikers, the stoners. They're like number 2 people that you don't fuck with. We were cool with them because even I rode bikes and skated, you know, it was like the thing to do. I loved doing it. So Danny told Chris he's going to kick his ass after school for running his mouth to him. So I'm walking home and I see Danny knock the shit out of Chris. Chris can't fight. So here I am like, fuck. This kid's really getting his ass kicked. I don't like seeing anybody get their ass kicked. It was just a straight up ass kicking. Danny was like hitting him, let him run anywhere, walking circles around him. It was funny. But I go over to Danny and Chris. I stop Danny. I said, look, man, you hit him, blah, 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 blah. Just leave him alone. Danny said, what the fuck? How the fuck can you get... I said, look, Danny, you kicked his ass, man. I talked some sense into him. And that's that. So after that, I walked Chris home. I kind of became like Chris's protector, and he continued to run his fucking mouth to people. Now, let me tell you something about Chris. Chris's father was a fucking Nazi, okay? I learned this because Chris took me inside his home, showed me Nazi plates, Nazi spoons, forks, Nazi coins that the Nazis took from other people after they killed them, Nazi suits, a Nazi knife. His father had a huge Nazi memorabilia collection. How else would you get something like this over to the United States if you weren't a relocated Nazi? Chris's father worked at NASA, okay? But one of the biggest questions why I'm really doing this video and I'm getting in depth into my background is because one of the questions that I really started to ask myself is who exactly was the Nazi scientist that got relocated and worked at NASA? The father of my friend Chris Treadway. I don't know that. The government knows that. The Bushes know that. Bush Sr. fucking killed my father's young brother. KKK. They know who the fuck that NASA Nazi scientist is and was. I don't know his name. I don't even know if he went by the name of Treadway when he worked at NASA. But the fact of the matter is, I got involved with his smart-ass, big-mouthed son. He became my friend because one day he shows up at my home throwing rocks at my window, bloody, with a black eye, bleeding, with a ripped shirt, asking, can I help him? And I thought he got his ass kicked. He wouldn't speak. He wouldn't say nothing. We got up the next morning. I gave him my shirt. And he went to school with me. He came home with me. He stayed another night at my house, and I said, look, man, what's going on? Why can't you go home? He said, my father beat me. I said, your father did this? I couldn't believe it. He's like, yeah. He said he always does when he comes home drunk. So I told my mom, because she wanted to know why I was here, why I was staying here. I told her the truth. So after 3 days, he finally went home. I didn't see him for a week. Nobody saw him for a week. He missed 3 days from school. I see him. His face had healed. But then when I went to say, hey man, what's up? I touched him on his shoulder. He jumped back. I said, what happened? He said, I don't want to talk about it. Finally, a few weeks later, he told me his dad beat him, tied him up. I couldn't believe it. Our relationship progressed, and then finally, after a little while, he told me his father had been raping him when he comes home. So here I was, a young kid. I was about 16, 15, 16, being exposed to this shit. How you gonna react to this? I'm a kid. He's a kid. I told my mom, I don't know what to do. My mom didn't know what to do. My mom tells her friends because she don't know what to do. But unfortunately, some of her friends are Freemason fucking Nazis too, working at this company with her. And the word gets around and back around to Chris's father that the ladies are talking now because my mom told him. Chris's father loses his job at NASA. He gets a job as a used car salesman. And basically, one day when I'm walking with Chris, my dad had bought me a $500 dyno bike. I left it at Chris's house when we went to go walk around his neighborhood. His father got home. Chris had this big ass rock in the back of his yard for decor. I find my bike next to Chris's father's car outside Chris's little back patio. The frame's bent. My pegs are bent. The bike is just fucked. Somebody took a rocker and just threw it on it. To this day, Chris would never admit that his father did it. So there goes my transportation as a kid. So I go up with Chris, and I see Chris date girls and guys. And then people start to talk about me because I'm friends with Chris. And then Chris really starts to take what his father put onto him to a whole nother level and moves to Montrose. Montrose is the gay community in Houston, Texas. And that's that. So I continue to be stalked by fucking Nazis to this day. My family continues to be gang stalked by these motherfuckers to this day. The CIA killed my cousin Ernest Bay, my fourth cousin, because even he didn't know how deep this shit went in my family. And if he did, he would have sent me some money to just vamoose. Get out of it. Live a nice, peaceful life, finally, because I've never had a peace of mind. But they killed him. He was the senior administrator of the Five-Star Trust. That's the secret bank of the CIA. He was telling these Nazi motherfuckers what to do with their money and how to invest it so they could continue to legally make these black programs look legal. So R.I.P. Mr. Bay. R.I.P. to specific family members that are dead and replaced, and I know it. Because, bottom line, none of these Nazi motherfuckers want you to know about the true history of my family, because if there's just me and no one to back up what I say, and there's just these Nazi motherfucking bullshit government asshole Luciferian pedophiles to say, oh, he's just making it up. Who else is there to stand with me? Huh? They put my father in a federal prison after my mom divorced him because they gave him an accountant, government accountant, who stole millions from my father. Guess what happened? They put my father in jail. They confiscated millions and millions and millions of dollars and his companies. He went to a federal prison. Guess what happened? I suspect they killed him and then sent out someone else as him. Because let me tell you something. Last time I was with my father, I went to his brother's funeral. Guess what happened? This shit don't happen, but it happened to me. And I knew when I get a chance, get the fuck out of Texas. Because what I had was my father's own cousins, his family members, which are very large, asking him questions, and I overhear them say, who the fuck are you? You don't know this, you don't know this, you really don't sound like Tom. Who the hell are you? What is this? And there was a big outrage at the funeral, and one of my cousins attacked him and started strangling him. Then the man that I thought was my father tells me to go to the car. He's going to handle this. Thinking that I didn't really get hip to what was going on. Let me remind you, I never see my father after the whole incident when we went to live with my mom. He barely came around. And when he did come around, it would be for like a funeral or something, you know? So when his own brothers, sisters, and cousins start questioning, who the fuck is he? And you've never seen anything like this. And then they are outside the church and he's being pushed by his own brothers. And then he gets in the car, hysterically drives away, doesn't really say anything to me. Other than, oh, they just a bunch of crazy low-life niggas. My father calling his own family crazy low-life niggas. What would you say to something like this, huh? Other than, that's not my father. Either they replaced him or they severely fucking brainwashed him. To brainwash the fact that he knew that the man that actually killed his brother, him and his cousins, were Bushes. So let me tell you about my experience in California. After I realized what's going on in my family, that my mother married Mr. Wilbert Jackson, a government plant, a government synth, his son, Cliff Jackson, government plant, government synth, Marine, Black Ops, Special Forces. He's even a fucking sheriff, a dirty, evil motherfucker. He's the person that controls all the security for all the Afro-American talent that comes to Houston. He also is the man that trains Puff Daddy's security. Everybody knows Officer Cliff. The police that came and tried to lock me up 3 times that came to my house. And when I opened the door, they just put me in handcuffs and took me away. They all knew Cliff. I asked them. They had nothing but good things to say. Known him for 10, 15 years. Officer, oh, that's your brother? I'm like you don't know, motherfucker. No, he ain't my brother. It's my stepbrother, the government sellout nigga that was put in my family to maintain the truth from coming out about what they've done to my family. Bottom line. So let me tell you what else they did before I go over to Romania. I send the Romanian consulate an email about my stepbrother and stepfather, about my family being into embezzlement, killing, money laundering through the shrine of the Black Madonna. Yes, you Afro-American Houstonians that think the shrine of the Black Madonna is so pro-black, pro-this. It's a black Luciferian fucking cult. Wilbur Jackson, my stepfather, brought that cult to Texas. So anyways, after I expose them, I live on the street. I make my way to California, and then after being homeless for a little under about 9 months in California, a year overall, because I was homeless about 3 months in Houston, Texas, because no one would believe me, no one would help me. So I just ended up one of those so-called crazy people on the streets. So after I make my way to California, this was after I lived in California for a little while. I don't really want to get into that experience. It involves more homosexual Nazis that basically put cameras in my fucking room. And I find out that my roommate is a bisexual government faggot. And then I rented a van, put all my records and everything I own in that van and drove back to Houston, Texas. And then exposed my step family. And then boom, I became homeless. So I'm living in California. This is shortly a little bit after 9/11. And basically, to make a long story short, they send in Jamal Kennard. What's up, FBI? Search your files on your boy. Search your files on Kennard's. Jamal Kennard's sister is an FBI agent. Jamal Kennard is an FBI agent. Jamal Kennard is an FBI assassin. Jamal Kennard also grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. Perfect for Jehovah's Witnesses to grow up in the witness community, because they're actually perfect for the government, because they don't vote. They don't get involved in all the political bullshit. They just are perfect to answer FBI and government phones, right? Right. So anyway, Jamal Kennard meets this girl named Jade. Jade is the daughter of a big mafioso, gypsy Jew mafia named Abba. Abba is notorious in Hollywood. He's the shadow writer for Silence of the Lambs. He also grew up with Lucas. Abba was my neighbor in Spring Branch. Forgot to mention that, huh? He was my father's friend. He was the only man that was nice to my father in this neighborhood where Lucas lived. Abba also shadow writes with Lucas. Now, I'm going to prove this to you, show you how inner-knit Texas is. Now, I told you I grew up with Woody Harrelson, correct? He knew my sister. My sister was his tutor when I was a kid. I'll never forget it when he went famous. My sister was so happy and proud and astonished. So anyways, Jamal Kennard comes, takes me, says I got a job for you. You can work, blah, 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 blah. Up in the mountains in Mendocino for ABBA. I got this girl pregnant, met her in a club. Jamal Kennard was actually a Sith sent in by the FBI to go in and destabilize ABBA. ABBA grew legal marijuana. I was living up in the mountains legally growing marijuana with ABBA and getting paid for it. So the family really liked me, but that family didn't realize who I was. Maybe ABBA did. Maybe Jamal Kennard did. I didn't, and when I did, I got the fuck out. So basically, to make a long story short, here's another government Sith named Jamal Kennard that actually reveals to me one day why he was there. How did he reveal it to me? Why did he reveal it to me? Well, like I told you, we were growing ganja, legal ganja in California, Mendocino. That's where we were. In Mendocino is the place where all the feds and C.I.A. retire. In Mendocino, you have a Walker Bush Street. Walker Bush was single-handedly responsible for going in and stripping and ripping the land from the Indians and the hippies in Mendocino. In downtown Mendocino, you have the downtown Mendocino courthouse that has a picture of the lawyer Walker Bush. And right across the street, parallel triangly, right across the street, is the Daughters of Job Masonic Temple. Mendocino. You can look it up. Google it. Then you'll see, damn, it really is something. So anyway, let me tell you about Mendocino. But first, let me tell you about Jamal Kennard, because this is very important. Because I want the FBI motherfuckers and the Gangstalkers and the C.I.A. Nazi Freemasons to listen up. Jamal Kennard was your Sith that you sent in to kill ABBA. How do I know? Because this dumb motherfucker that can't hold his drugs sits there, tries to prove how much stamina he has, how much he can take. Well, this particular night, your agent took, scrapings, big balls of, I guess what we call, weed tar or whatever, the juice that gets on your scissors from clipping. He basically made butter. Okay? And this butter was ultra strong because this was hydro ganja. He ate 5 pieces of toast. I only ate 1, okay? I was like, whoa. I spent 6 hours listening to an FBI agent tell me how much he likes poisoning people, how good of a cook he is, about all the government poisons that you guys have, the whole section of what you call the cooks, the men that go into your life that look good and they can cook, because the ladies love a man that can cook and can cook good, and then they're actually there to poison you. You know about these guys, FBI, and you know what Jamal Kennard is. That's his real name. Again, not full of shit. So he couldn't hold his drugs. He blew his cover. He was so happy to just let it all out and how good he is. He's one sick, twisted motherfucker. I could never imagine or fathom any person like this in this world could ever exist, but they do. And I was lucky enough to listen to him for 6 hours, come clean. The next day he was freaked because he remembered what he did. I told him I didn't remember nothing. I said, man, I was listening to my music. I was listening to my mixes. I was off in some other world. I said, man, it was like you just became like a fucking tunnel and your voice became intertwined with the music. I couldn't understand shit you were saying. I was off in La La Land. I lied my ass off to him. A week later, he goes to Morocco with Jade and Bijou. And basically, I'm left to work with Abba and Mike. Now, I knew Mendocino looked very familiar to me, and I had been up there before. I couldn't remember when. I went up there with my father. My parents were married. My father used to be the head salesman of Amway. This is before Amway got big. He was number one. This is how he met all these big head honchos. Amway was a company that claimed to be the first environmentally safe company. And in actuality, Amway were making products that were environmentally safe. But in order to make these environmentally safe products, you had to take the deadly toxins out of these products and dispose of them. My father went from the head salesman of Amway to becoming the man that disposed of these products in secret. But when he was working at Amway, he drove all around the country speaking to these rich people all throughout California. My father worked very heavily in San Francisco and California. This is why he was never home on his business trips. He was always working and promoting and selling. So I'm sitting there with Mike, working in Mendocino, and I'm telling him about my family. I mentioned Amway. Mike was involved in Amway. He said, yeah, I remember that. I was part of that too, blah, 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 blah. And then I told him my father and my father's name. He knew my father. He tripped out. He told me he'll be right back. He got on the four-wheeler and went down to the house and talked to Abba. He told Abba who my father was, and they finally realized who I was. Abba was shocked. He realized I was his neighbor in Mendocino, and Jamal had brought me up here. Him and Mike came up. They started to ask me questions and stuff, trying to be discreet. I told him about Jamal and what happened. I told the truth. I ain't give a fuck. Jamal was really shitty. I mean, if he was there to kill Abba, who knows? I don't give a fuck. F.B.I, C.I.A, you all know what Abba does. I'm not going to even get into all the other C.I.A agents that I've met that live in Mendocino up in the mountains around Abba's place, okay? It's all legal. Shit. For medical people, now I can talk about it. So after this happened, Jamal and Jade and Bijou get back from Morocco. Abba takes us to see some movie. I forget what the movie was, but Jamal knew his cover was blown. So he freaks out on me when we get back to the house. I just go to sleep. Now, let me tell you something before the next day I wake up. Quentin Tarantino has a house in Mendocino. Liv Tyler, yes, I do know her. The Tylers actually lived in Spring Branch. Okay? Liv actually went to Spring Forest. Also, Liv's a friend of mine on Facebook. I haven't talked to her for a very long time, but she remembers me. She's a sweetheart. Love her to death. So the Tylers also lived in Texas. Do you think that the whole combination of Russell Simmons and Aerosmith just came about from Rick Rubin? No. Hello? I told you, Russell Simmons lived in Texas. Run DMC is Russell's cousin. Hollywood. Music business. All intertwined and interconnected. Woody Harrelson has a house in Mendocino in the movie Kill Bill. The first one, when they have a fight in that really cool Asian looking place in the inn, that's in Woody Harrelson's house, sitting on the cliffs of Mendocino. Quentin, Abba, Woody, even Russell, they all have houses in Mendocino. There's an exclusive, very rich housing community in Mendocino. How do I know? Because I lived in Mendocino for about 5-6 months. I loved it. It was awesome. Before I let Abba know that this government Sith picked me up off the street, used me, brought me around him, and he's a motherfucker that gets paid to cook people food and poison that food. And basically this motherfucker knocked up Abba's daughter and is in Morocco with his daughter and son. Does this sound like some shit straight out of a movie? You better believe it. But it's real. So then after this, I wake up the next morning. Jamal is screaming at Jade and her mother, telling him I have to go. Blah, 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 blah. And so Jade calls Abba, and Abba just says, let him go, get rid of him, because there's going to be some shit going down in the family, I guess. So I pack all my stuff, few bags, and this is what I did to really fuck Jamal up. Now, hey CIA, hey Nazis, I ain't stupid. From dealing with you all my life has really made me kind of quite intelligent. So anyways, this is what I did to your little Sith, Jamal Kennard. To prove that I know he's a government agent, check this out. Me, Jade, and Jade's baby all, get in the car with Jade's mother. I tell Jamal, hey Jamal, when I have my last bag, hey, can you go in and get Jade's glasses? She forgot them with her purse. Jade had her glasses and her purse. I get in the car and I tell Jade's mom to drive off. He's just going to stay here. He didn't want to come. Now, let me tell you something. If you're a month out of when you expose yourself, you're gone for a month. The Godfather that we know is, I guess, Abba, shows you a movie that pretty much tells you what they do to fucking Siths, government agents and shit. And you're freaking out. You're gonna freak the fuck out if we leave you at the house by yourself a day after you get back from Morocco. And I'm telling you, no, I don't remember anything. But Abba just told you that he knows what the fuck you are. So we drive off, and right when we get out of the house, because it was a very big house, it was kind of like a small estate in Mendocino. Had an orchard, it's just a beautiful place. So basically I start counting, and by the time I hit 10, now let me remind you, in Mendocino there's one road up the mountains, in the area where we lived, and one road, one way to get down. Okay, so whoever's gonna come up, you're gonna see him. So within 10 seconds, I see a black truck, silent, blacked out windows, government license plate, flashing a red thing in the window. That's all you can see, speeding past us. What happened was Jamal Kennard hit a panic button or something that we left him there at the house alone to get hit. Which I knew this would happen. This is why I did what I did. Blew his cover. Jade, everybody saw it. Jade's mother turned red. Nobody said anything. They dropped me off at the homeless shelter in Mendocino. Mendocino said I couldn't, the homeless people said I couldn't live there. I had too much stuff. So I'm homeless in Mendocino. So a few days later, I get picked up, thrown in jail in Mendocino. I don't know if this was for my protection or whatever, but what I do know is a girl claimed that I threw a rock at her car, and after a month, after I finally get a lawyer and I finally get out, and it's proven that it was not a rock that hit her car, somebody had keyed her car. It's complete bullshit. The judge told me if I don't catch another case in Mendocino in the next 6 months, it'll be thrown out of court and wiped off my record. The money that I made working for ABBA, I go and purchase a ticket to Romania. I spend 3.5 weeks on the street because I had to purchase a ticket a month in advance. The day before my plane leaves, I take a bus to San Francisco. I spend the night on the streets there. I go to the airport. I go to Amsterdam, then fly to Romania. When I got to Romania, the Romanian customs didn't even stamp my passport. Why? Because of the letter that I sent the Romanian consulate in Washington, D.C. about my family and what they had done to my family. I still have that passport today that doesn't have any trace of me going to Romania for a second time. I had been to Romania before to DJ, and those stamps are there. But the second time when I went to Romania, there is no proof in my passport that I was there. They secretly let me come into their country. So after 3 years of being in Romania, I get approached by Freemasons, mafia motherfuckers asking me to work for them. My girlfriend comes up missing. I get involved with government agents to find her, to start an investigation on Nika Geru, Fashion TV. I spend 2 more years searching for her. I piss off the Paracelsus group and the Freemasons because I'm totally exposing all of their businesses that are intertwined with the music industry there, because I rise to the top of the music industry while I'm doing this. Rothschilds come down to my work, literally get me fired because it's the place where all the politicians and Freemasons have all their fucking dinners at the Radisson Resort Hotel Bucharest. The manager at the time when I was there, vice manager, was Jasper, a faggot German. The head manager, I don't remember his name because I fucking hated him. He's also a German Freemason. I DJ'd at all their Freemason dinners in the Radisson where they'd have German and French Freemasons come and listen to me and eat. So then I can't find a job after being and living in Romania for about 6, 7, almost 8 years. I can't find a job anywhere. Rothschilds came and sprinkled money everywhere, told everybody not to hire me. I'm the best fucking DJ. So I take this time, because I'm homeless, walking around, exposing, making exposés of their businesses and loading them up to YouTube. Those videos are on my channel, Zakaos Breedlove, on YouTube. You can view them. All my experiences that I'm talking about are documented on YouTube of me talking just like this now. So for somebody that wants to go do a movie or write a book about me, it would be pretty fucking easy. That's why I'm doing this. Because I can't get a book deal. I did get a book deal, and boom, Rothschilds pissed some money, and all of a sudden the book company wants 10 grand. After they loved my writings and just told me, I've never heard such feeling come from a writer. So anyway, I go to Paris. My Paris escapades, they're all documented. This is what I entitle My Life Growing Up with the Nazis. They just won't leave me the fuck alone and let me get a goddamn dime. Because why? Well, because I put it like this. I'm going to leave you like this. I'm a musician, I'm a fucking poet, I'm an MC, and I'm going to let you know it. If I had my fucking money in a studio, I'd make these Nazis bleed in a second. Truthfully, I'm an MC, and if I had a little bit of my fucking money, I'd be recording this to my own beats. But they don't want to see an Afrocentric, Afro-beautiful, never forget something like this rise up and stomp on their bullshit because of what they did to my father's brother and what they did to my unborn fucking kids. They took my lady, they fucked with my unborn baby, now they fucking stalk me, and they don't want anybody to know a goddamn thing. Well, I sat on the streets of Bucharest and Paris, I sat in Romania and California, yeah, doing this because what? I'm the best. If you ever want to walk past me, test me. I'll talk about you and your whole fucking family walking past me. I'm a freestyle fanatic. Don't ever fucking step to me, please. I'll make these fucking Nazis bleed. Now you know my story, the fucking MC that you never heard of. I'm a turntablist, respect to Qbert and all the best. I grew up with the best of the best of the best, and if you want to test this one, you'll be laying 6 feet under, poetically speaking, my friend. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I'm exposing their bullshit, their neo-Nazi bullshit fucking aliens because they're pedophiles and just love taking kids and blaming it on aliens. They're fucking demons. They're hybrid mixed human DNA fucking cloning bullshit. That's what it is. These time jumping, gender bending motherfuckers are gonna get splattered like no other. I don't like bullshit. I don't like people coming to me with this and this and this when you honestly don't know shit. So I would get my respect on the streets as an MC from government agents and people walking by me knowing I'm the best because I talk about Nikagaru and fashion TV and his female cartel children snatching bullshit. If you don't like it, if you're one of them, if you're part of the Paracelsus Nazi fucking Freemason group, all I gotta say is fuck you. Thank you for my time. I was born divine. You ain't gonna get me, and if you do, I know where I'm going, fools. Peace.